والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم ذكرنا ما نسينا وعلمنا ما جهلنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من حال أهل النار لله تعالى. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to protect his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because he is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and he is not attributed with fatigue like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Al-Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and his final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and he is truthful about everything he conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intentions for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise would be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only and not the praise of the people. So, Alhamdulillah, the one who gave us the certainty. Allah gave the Muslims the guidance and the certainty without a doubt. And this is part of the tranquility that comes with Al-Islam. Because with Al-Islam, you are sure. With Al-Islam, you know where you stand. With Al-Islam, everything is clear. And so the conflict for the Muslim, it is based on his internal struggle. So when we hear about Muslims that are struggling, or Muslims that are having a hard time, or Muslims that are having emotional or mental issues and struggles, that goes back to their nafs, their how they deal with those certainties and those realities. Because in Islam, there's no room for confusion. This is why Al Islam is known or is called in Al Quran and is described as the straight path. As-siratul mustaqim. And we as Muslims, we recite that in Al Fatiha for every single prayer that we pray. Ihdina as-siratul mustaqim. It is a dua to Allah, asking Allah to keep us steadfast, to keep us firm in Al Islam, to not be among those who fall off the straight path. Because it's clear, the straight path is clear. If you're looking at a long road, there's no twists, there's no turns. Let's say you're looking at a highway that's cutting straight through. Are you confused about where the road is going? No, it's only going one way. So either you stay on that road or now you go off into the wilderness, right? Because let's imagine this road is like cutting through like a deserted area. There's no houses, there's no gas stations, there's no commercial buildings. It's just, let's say, desert or sand or grass or whatever, depending of the scenery, what place in the world that is. Is there going to be confusion about what it is that you need to do? You got to keep the steering wheel not going right or left, because this road is a straight road and it just cuts all the way through for hundreds of miles. There's no confusion. The internal struggle of the individual comes from how they deal with those certainties and those realities. So the faster that the Muslim understands and fully absorbs within himself the reality of death, and the fact that there is a promise for the pious Muslims that after they die, they will have tranquility and they will never grieve, then the the decision is clear. Be pious so that when you're dead, when you die, then you're free from the prison. الدنيا سجن المؤمن أي المؤمن الكامل. There's a hadith that literally says this worldly life is the prison of the mu'min. And the mu'min, it means the perfect Muslim. What does it mean? It means that while this perfect Muslim is in this dunya, he has to restrict himself from following his bad inclinations. He has to push himself and motivate himself to do the obligations, to do what is his obligation and not be lazy, for example, or not choose something else over the obligation. So, in that sense, it is like a prison because he has to restrain himself, etc. And then once he dies, now he is outside of at-taklif, the accountability, meaning now um, he's no longer ordered or directed to do certain actions. Now, after death, is the time of reaping, the time of harvesting, the time of getting the fruits of your works. So for the pious Muslim, he's going to be happy because the fruits of his works are uh, generously given by Allah Ta'ala, the reward that the Muslim receives for doing the good deeds in the hereafter. So Alhamdulillah that we have the certainty, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us and to grant us the ability, to keep granting us the ability to do the good deeds and to acquire the knowledge of Al-Islam. With the knowledge of Al-Islam, the Muslim finds a trustworthy and wise and knowledgeable and guiding companion. The Muslim who he has this relationship with the knowledge, he lives a happy life and he lives a blessed life. And the people of the knowledge, they'll tell you, this is something that they write in their books that is known, that the pleasure that the seeker of knowledge and the lover of knowledge gets from acquiring the knowledge and increasing in knowledge and getting the knowledge and understanding it and studying it and reviewing it and memorizing it and spreading it, all of that, that is one of the greatest pleasures in this world. So we are thankful to Allah for that endowment. Because some people, instead of yearning and thirsting and seeking and wanting the knowledge, they're repelled away from it. Instead, they're yearning and seeking something else, some entertainment in the dunya. نسأل الله السلامة. طيب, we got to the invalidators of the prayer. So now we're gonna go through them. The author said, section 15, the prayer is nullified by speaking inasmuch as two letters or a single letter which carries a meaning, unless the person forgets and the statements uttered are few. So this is an easy, straightforward case. First is speaking. So that's the main category. And if you notice with the Islamic law, especially in the Shafi'i school, it's very precise. So when you hear the word speaking, you think of speaking. You think of somebody saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" This and that. That's speaking. Or saying, for example, "Hey," or saying, for example, uh, "Look," or "Watch out," or something. This is speaking. So what is the minimum amount that, for example, without taking into consideration the meaning, if there's a meaning or not, that if someone uttered that sound, it would be considered that they're speaking, and so their prayer would be invalid if they do that while remembering that they're in the prayer. So always keep in mind this condition. This is while being conscious and aware that you're in the prayer. And an educated Muslim, a Muslim that has learned the obligatory knowledge and that knows how to pray and stuff like that, they might feel like, oh wow, somebody would really speak in the prayer while being conscious. Yes, that happens with the ignorant people. There have been reports of people standing in the prayer lines, uh, speaking while they're in the prayer, because they have no idea that this is invalidates the prayer. But they know they're in the prayer and they say the words they utter. So if what they say, if what they utter is at least two letters, like for example, a ba with an alif, ba, for example, this is this validates the prayer if they do that on purpose. Yani if they know that they're praying, they're remembering that they're praying. So even though that might not have a meaning, but if it's two letters, the prayer is invalid. Now, if it's one letter, and this can be easily uh, known, this example can be easily known from the Arabic language. And now in other languages, it depends on if it is really just one letter and if it has a meaning. But so if it's one letter, then we check, does it have a meaning or does it not have a meaning? If it has a meaning, then it would invalidate. And if it doesn't have a meaning, it would not invalidate. The example that's given for a letter, one single letter, that has a meaning in the Arabic language is like the verbal command qi, a qaf with a kasra on it. So this is the verbal command form, the singular um, second person male command form of the verb waqa yaqi. The past tense is waqa. The present tense is yaqi. And the way that you make the verbal command, the fi'lu amrin, from that, like a very like easy way to do it without getting into uh the reasoning behind it. You take off the letter of mudara'a, in which in yaqi would be the ya at the beginning, and you make it majzoom. So since the verb yaqi, it ends with one of the letters of hilla, an alif, a ya, or a waw. So the rule for to make it majzoom is that you just erase it. You take away the ya. So now you have qi. And so that would be like ordering someone to do the verb of waqa yaqi, which means like to preserve, to protect. So in Arabic, if someone says qi in the prayer, while remembering that they're praying, since it has a meaning, since it's one letter that has a meaning, it invalidates the prayer. Now, for other languages, in those languages they would have to research and investigate to see if there is like such a thing as one letter that has a meaning. Now, in the case where the person forgets that they're in the prayer, because also that might happen, sometimes a person is distracted and they're not fully concentrating on the prayer and their mind wanders and they forget that they're in the prayer, and they might have a conversation or they might say certain words. So here, if they forget, it doesn't invalidate unless what they say is considered to be a lot. So that is counted in the school of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i as six, if you want to say, phrases or sentences. For example, go to the store, buy me a bread, bring me the bread, put it here. For example, that is less than six. So if the person is forgetting and they say that amount, then their prayer would still be valid. But if it goes beyond the six phrases, then in that case, um, even if they're forgetting, their prayer is invalid. Any questions about that before moving on to the next one? because I want to make sure each validator is understood. طيب. The next nullifier, yani invalidator of the prayer, is performing many moves. So, what is considered many moves? Which, according to some scholars, are continuous movements lasting for the duration of one rak'ah, one cycle, one unit of prayer. Okay, so we have a question here. Yes, the 6 phrases is not 6 words only. No, it have to be um, what is called kalimat urfiyah. A six uh, what are considered to be sentences. Like the example I gave: go to the store, buy me the bread, bring me the bread, put it here. That's 4. Go to the store, 1. Buy me the bread, 2. Bring me the bread, 3. Put it here, 4. So that would be less than 6. Wafikum. Type. So the many moves, what is considered many moves? According to some Shafi'is, it is continuous movements that last for the duration of one rak'ah. Yani of what is considered to be the minimum for a rak'ah, that is just doing the integrals. So someone just did the integrals, that amount that it would take for them to complete one rak'ah, that amount of time, if they are continuously moving, their prayer is invalid. So continuous means that the movements have no pause in between them. So, for example, if someone that has their hands in the sunnah position during the prayer, and above their navel, below their chest, with the left hand, with the left palm facing the abdomen, and the right palm uh, kind of gripping the left, and then they go and, for example, they lift up their hand to scratch the back of their head, and then they put their hand down, and then they're back now into that position, and then 5 seconds later they do it again, they scratch their head again. So these are 2 separate movements, and they're not counted as continuous. So if he does that pausing in between, let's say, his prayer would not be invalid. But if he continuously moves, like let's say he's moving his hands around back and forth, and he stays moving like that for at least the time that it would take to do the integrals of one rak'ah, then the prayer is invalid, according to those Shafi'is. And another thing, according to the Shafi'is, is that 3 consecutive motions nullify the prayer. However, the first saying is supported by stronger evidence, yani the continuous movements lasting for the time it takes to do one rak'ah. That has a stronger evidence. So what's that evidence, yani? That there's a hadith that is narrated about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was praying, and that someone came to the door, knocked on the door, and he opened it. So those Shafi'is, they use that hadith as evidence, saying this would be more than 3 consecutive movements, and his prayer was still valid. It wasn't. He didn't cut his prayer, because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would not cut the prayer. So the Shafi'is that have the other saying of 3 consecutive movements, they say it's possible that he was praying in front of the door, and that he did not make the movement movements consecutive, meaning he paused in between and he opened the door, or that he opened the door with less than three consecutive movements. That's what those other Shafi'is they said. But we can take by either or. We could take by either or. So for the second saying, which is three consecutive movements, an example of that is like taking three steps without pausing. So sometimes a person will be praying, they're standing, and they need to move. Let's say so. Let's say because there wasn't enough room and there were people lining up behind him and there was some space in front of him and he would be the imam now, so he would, let's say, take two steps forward so that the people can line up behind him while he's in the prayer. So if he takes those two steps, one, two, without pausing in between, this is still less than three consecutive. If he goes one, two, three, then and they're consecutive, according to this saying, his prayer would be invalid. So if someone needs to take three or more steps in the prayer and they want to comply with this saying, they would just take one step, stop, then take and pause, then take the second step, pause, then take the third step, pause, and this would not invalidate the prayer. Any questions about that before moving to the next one? طيب. The next is performing a single excessive movement, like jumping. So somebody hops in the prayer while remembering that they're praying, their prayer is invalid. The next one is adding an extra physical integral. What does it mean, physical? Yani it means other than the verbal, because there's verbal integrals and there's physical integrals. The verbal integrals are like saying Allahu Akbar to begin the prayer, which is known as Takbiratul Ihram, and then Al Fatiha, and then the last tashahhud, and then As Salatu ala Nabi, and then Assalamu alaikum to close the prayer. So these are called verbal integrals. Here we're talking about the physical integrals, like what? Like ruku', like sujud, like the sitting. So whoever adds a physical integral while remembering, of course. So for example, they're praying, they're reciting Al-Fatiha, they finished Al-Fatiha, they recite another surah like Al-Ikhlas, and then they go to ruku'. And so after they do ruku', they come back up to i'tidal, straightening up, and then they go to ruku' again. So they do two ruku's, and so that would invalidate the prayer if they do that while remembering that they did the first one. Or like adding, for example, an extra sujud. The person goes down to make sujud, he comes up, and he makes sujud again, and then he comes up, and then he makes sujud again. This would invalidate the prayer. Any questions about that before moving on? All right, next one is performing a move with the purpose of playing. So any movement or gesture with the intention of playing around, this would invalidate the prayer. So it comes down to the intention of the person or the movement that they do with the intention. If it's considered playing, then they invalidate their prayer. Eating or drinking, except if one forgets and it is little. So, yani, if someone they have like some food stuck in their teeth and it becomes loose while they're praying, and then they consciously swallow it, their prayer would be invalidated. Yeah, and if consciously meaning they are remembering they're in the prayer. If they're forgetting that they're in the prayer and they swallow it, it won't invalidate. Um, except and if they're forgetting and it's little, it won't invalidate. If they forget and it's a lot, it will invalidate. So someone, for example, is praying and they became, let's say, absent-minded, and they forgot that they were in the prayer, and then they started like eating a sandwich, then their prayer would be invalidated when it becomes considered a lot, eating a lot. And I don't have a specific definition for that, but if they're not forgetting and they swallow it on purpose, yani, their prayer is invalid. If they're forgetting and they ate, but it's considered to be a little bit, then their prayer would still be valid. Any questions about that before moving to the next one? طيب, intending to interrupt the prayer. So if the person is praying and then they have in their heart themselves, yani they themselves have in their heart, if uh and in the next minute or so I'm going to stop the prayer, then immediately their prayer is stopped. If the person has that intention in their heart that um that they're going to in the future interrupt their prayer, then it becomes interrupted immediately. And likewise, deciding to interrupt one's prayer if such and such a thing occurs, that's making it conditional. So in this example, the person is praying and then they say, if someone knocks out the door or if someone calls me, I'm going to cut the prayer and answer the door or answer the phone. If they do that, and once they have that intention, immediately their prayer gets cut off. And likewise, their prayer gets cut off if they hesitate about interrupting the prayer. So what does that mean, hesitate? Yani, they didn't have any intention in their heart. They were, praying. They're fully focused on their prayer. They're not thinking about anything in the dunya. And then all of a sudden, there's a knock at the door. Now the person hears a knock at the door and they say to themselves, do I cut my prayer and answer the door, or do I keep praying? So he's hesitating. He's back and forth. So in that case, his prayer is invalid right away. So if someone's praying and someone knocks at the door, the person should not care about it, and they should continue with their prayer, fully focused in their prayer. Any questions about any of those before moving on to the next one? طيب, to complete an integral, while the doubt persists whether or not one has established the intention to perform the prayer in the opening statement, Allahu Akbar, or if the duration of that doubt is long. So what does it mean here to complete an integral? Like for the person to be passing on from, let's say, ruku' to i'tidal. Um, like for the person, for example, to pass on from uh, after reciting Al-Fatiha to ruku', for example. So if the person is passing between those two, or going, for example, from ruku' to i'tidal, or he's going from after reciting Al-Fatiha to ruku', this person, if they're doubting about did they establish the intention to perform the prayer when they said Allahu Akbar or not, then that person, his prayer would be invalid. Did I intend? Did I make the intention that I'm doing this prayer or not? That the person has that doubt. Let's say right after they finish reciting Al-Fatiha. If then, like 5 seconds later, and let's say they started reciting another surah, then 5 seconds later they remembered, yes, I did obviously intend, and now their doubt is gone. Now they move to ar-ruku', then this is okay, this is valid. But if the duration of that doubt is long, whether or not the person moved to another integral, his prayer would be invalidated. So there's a difference between having the doubt for a short period of time and then that doubt going away, and um between the person having the doubt not moving to another physical integral, but the doubt persisting for a long time, what's considered to be a long time. And usually in these parts, or in these like places in the Islamic law, they say what's considered to be a long time uh normally, and like by the people. But I don't have also a specific. I don't have a specific time frame. Now, if the person they have the doubt and then immediately, for example, they move to another physical integral while they have that doubt, their prayer is invalidated. So, what should the person do if that happens to them? And if they have a doubt before they move to the next integral, they try to remember as fast as they can, because if the doubt stays too long, their prayer would be invalidated. But if they can remember in a short period, then they wait before they move. And then once the doubt has gone away, let's say they remembered, now they move. So the person shouldn't, if he has that doubt, he should not think that immediately he should move to the next integral. Rather, he should take the time to remember before moving. Because if he moves while he's still doubting, then what happens? His prayer becomes invalid. So if whoever doubts about the intention of his prayer, did he intend at all or not? Or he doubted, did he intend dhuhr or asr? So he has to remember before he moves to the next physical integral. If he doesn't remember and he still didn't move to the next physical integral, then if it becomes long, and that time period becomes long, then his prayer is invalid as well. So what's an example uh, of moving to another integral? It doesn't have to be a physical one. It's just any integral. Like the one who recites Al-Fatiha and he has that doubt, and then obviously and he finishes the Fatiha while still having that doubt. Now his prayer is invalid. Or after he recited Al-Fatiha, he doubted about the intention, and then he went to ruku' while being doubtful. His prayer is invalidated. So this case, yani, it comes down to when the person had the doubt and what did they do once they had the doubt. Let's say he entered into the prayer. He recited the first two ayahs of Al-Fatiha, and then he doubted, did I even intend to be in the prayer, or did I intend dhuhr or asr? So he, let's say, keeps reciting the Fatiha while still having that doubt. If he finishes reciting Al-Fatiha while that doubt is still there, his prayer is invalid because now a rukun, an integral, has passed. So is that case clear before we move on? طيب. Now the conditions. Okay, so good question here. So once, if let's say that case occurred and they doubted and they moved to another integral, uh, with that doubt still in their heart, and an integral was completed while that doubt is still in their heart, then yes, their prayer becomes invalid and they have to start all over again. So here another question: does doing the shahada on the first rak'ah by mistake invalidates the prayer? No, it does not. Like just to say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah or ashhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah, that does not uh invalidate the prayer. Also, if like they and he said the words of the tashahhud by mistake, it wouldn't invalidate their prayer. Yeah, the tahiyyah. Yeah, the at-tahiyyat al-mubarakat as-salawat lillah. They said it by mistake, it would not invalidate their prayer. So now this new section, these are the conditions for the rewardability of the prayer. So what does that mean? In order for the Muslim, right, he's doing his dhuhr prayer. He's fulfilling his obligation. Yani, so on Judgment Day, he's not going to be questioned, did you do the dhuhr prayer or not? So he has done it. Yani, he's done the dhuhr prayer. But now, in order for him to get reward, what has to happen? These three things. These three things are a condition for that Muslim to get reward for the prayer, the obligatory prayer that he did. So the first thing, or the author said, in addition to what has been previously mentioned of the conditions in order for the prayer to merit reward from Allah, it is a condition to perform the prayer exclusively for the sake of Allah, for one's food, clothing, and place of prayer to be permissible, for one to be in awe of Allah during the prayer, even if it is for a moment. Hence, if this does not occur, one's prayer is valid, however, without reward. So what does that mean? Yani, um, the first one, to perform the prayer exclusively for the sake of Allah. So what does that mean? That means to have the sincere intention, meaning that that Muslim, he is doing the prayer, he is obeying Allah, worshiping Allah, because he wants to obey Allah, because he wants to be accepted by Allah, because he wants to get reward from Allah. This is a sincere intention. And he's not doing the prayer so that people can praise him. He's not doing the prayer so people can say, wow, that Muslim prays. Wow, he's a good Muslim. He prays. Wow, he's a pious Muslim. He prays. No, he does. He's not doing the prayer so that people can praise him. No, he's doing the prayer because he fears Allah, because he loves Allah and his messenger, because he wants to be a slave that prays to his Lord. He wants to submit himself to Allah, and this prayer is one of the physical ways to show that, because the way that we stand, for example, we stand in a way like our head is it's sunnah for the head to be bowed down, to be inclined downwards so that you can focus on the spot where you make it sujood. When you bow, this bowing, you're bowing to Allah Ta'ala, your creator. You're putting your face on the floor. You're putting what people consider to be, or what is considered to be, the most honored part of your body, the face, on the floor in submission to Allah. So this Muslim, he has that in his heart. That's the sincere intention. I'm bowing down to my Lord. I'm prostrating to my Lord. I'm worshiping my Lord. I'm being a grateful slave. I submit to Allah. So that's the sincere intention. That person is not doing it so that people can say, "Oh, wow, he prays." No, that would be subhanallah. That would be a sickness of the heart. Who cares about the praise of the people? Will that save you on Judgment Day? Will the praise of the people prevent the torture of the grave? Will the people's praise help you when you're being resurrected? No, everyone's going to be busy with their own situation. Subhanallah. So that's what it means to perform the prayer exclusively for the sake of Allah, yani to have the sincere intention. So this is at the beginning. Yani when you enter into the prayer, you have that in your heart. For example, نويت صلاة الظهر لله تعالى, or أصلي فرض الظهر لله تعالى, or أصلي فرض الظهر تذللا لله تعالى. Those are examples. I now pray the obligatory dhuhr prayer out of obedience to Allah, for the sake of Allah, uh, to humbling myself, submitting myself to Allah. That's an example of a sincere intention. The next is for one's food, clothing, and place of prayer to be permissible. Yani for those things to be halal. So, for example, the food, what's the food referring to? The food that you have in your belly while you're praying, as you're doing the prayer, that food that's inside your belly, is it halal? If it is halal, then this is fulfilled. The clothing that you're wearing while you're praying, is it halal? If the answer is yes, then this has been fulfilled. And the place of prayer to be halal, is the place that you're praying in, is it halal? Or is it like someone who, let's say, they rented an apartment for a lease, yani they leased it for 1 year, they made the contract with the landlord for 1 year, that year passes, and that person that's renting, now the landlord's telling him, okay, your lease is up, now you have to move out, I need to use this apartment for something else, and the renter, he says, no, I'm staying, and he squats. And as you know, in some places, the man-made laws, because the man-made laws are corrupt, and because the man-made laws are imperfect, and because the man-made laws, they're not based on the proper standards, a lot of times the squatter, the supposed man-made law, would be on his side, and that landlord, he won't be able to, quote unquote, legally do anything about it, and he has to just be patient. And that person can squat there, according to the man-made law, without paying anything, and that landlord, he has to wait some time before he can get him out. So this is injustice, of course, because the one who's squatting, he doesn't have the right to stay in that apartment when the landlord, he doesn't accept, and the lease is up, the contract is done, the landlord fulfilled his side. Now this squatter, he is transgressing. So that squatter living in that apartment, if he's Muslim and he's going to pray Dhuhr or Asr or Maghrib or Isha in there, he won't get any reward because that place is not halal for him. That's a practical example of that. But there's other yani, scenarios where that is the case, yani. But this is just one example to make it easy to understand. And the last thing is for one to be in awe of Allah during the prayer, even if it is for a moment. So being in awe of Allah is the meaning of khushu'. So this is an Arabic term, khushu', which is referring to a certain feeling or sentiment that the person has in their heart. It is a fear of reverence, right? So a fear of glorification. So it's not the type of fear, it's not the same type of fear like fearing the torture of the grave, or like, let's say, imagining during the prayer uh the being afraid of hellfire, etc. No, that's not specifically what's um defined as khushu'. The khushu', yani, it means the person is in their heart, they feel this glorification of Allah that is, yani, mixed with fear. Like that Allahu Ta'ala, He's the greatest in status, and He has power over all things, and He is the creator of the universe. This glorification and this awe, like this uh amazing type of realization, like of how that Allah is the greatest. This is the khushu'. And some imams, they define al khushu' as presence of heart. So basically, that Muslim, he's in this prayer, for example, he is completely present in the sense that when he's about to enter the prayer, he has in his heart, I'm now saying Allahu Akbar, entering into the prayer, understanding the meaning of Allahu Akbar, that Allah is the greatest in status. And he has that, for example, the meanings of that and the feelings of that in his heart. And then he says Allahu Akbar, he does the intention, he's reciting Al-Fatiha. He is conscious and aware of what he's reciting, what it means. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. He has the meanings of that in his heart as he's saying it in real time. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Understanding the meanings of all that. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. A dua, supplication, asking Allah to make us, to keep us steadfast, having that humility and that submission to Allah present in the heart. Then when they bow, they're conscious and aware. I'm bowing to the Lord of the universe. I'm bowing to my Lord. I'm bowing to the Creator. When he goes to sujood, he's has those feelings in his heart of glorification and submitting himself to Allah, etc. Throughout the whole prayer, that would be the perfect khushu'. That would be the perfect khushu'. But the condition for to be eligible to receive the reward is to at least have that feeling for one moment in the prayer, for 1 second. Subhanallah. Some people, when they're praying, they're not even, they're like, someone might say, on autopilot. They're not thinking about the meanings of what they're saying. They're not thinking about the movements and what they mean and what they're actually doing. They're thinking about what they're going to do after they finish praying. They're thinking about their bank account. They're thinking about uh, whatever, their business. They're thinking about what they're going to buy. Or they're thinking about the trip that they're going to take in a month. Yani, their mind is distracted by these dunya things. And so they're just trying to get through the prayer as fast as possible. So if that person, they don't have the khushu' for even one moment, that feeling of fear, of reverence and glorification for Allah and that presence of heart, then they exit from the prayer and they would have completed the prayer. So it's considered that they fulfilled the obligation, so they won't be questioned about that prayer. But they don't get any reward on top of that. They will just be counted that they did the prayer. So they obeyed Allah. They didn't leave out the prayer. They did the prayer. It's valid. It's complete, and it's done in a valid way. But they don't get any reward on top of that if they did not have the khushu'. Any questions about that before continuing? طيب. We'll start a little bit of the integrals of the prayer, and then we'll finish. So now integrals of the prayer. So now these matters. This has to be done in order for the prayer to be valid. If any of these things are not done, or they're not done properly, the prayer would be invalid. Because if they don't do them properly, then it's not considered that they're done. So the integrals of the prayer are 17. The first integral is the intention in the heart to perform the prayer, to specify the cause or time of prayer, and to specify it being obligatory when it is so. So the intention, what is the intention? What do you have to have in your heart that you're doing the prayer? So you say something like, I now pray. To specify the cause or time of prayer. So if you're praying an obligatory dhuhr prayer, you say, I now pray the obligatory dhuhr prayer. And to specify it being obligatory when it is so. Yani, some imams, they specified that you have to specify that. So you have to literally specify, I now pray the obligatory dhuhr prayer. But some imams, they said, obviously, if you know that it's obligatory already, you don't have to literally specify it. So you don't have to say um, the obligatory dhuhr prayer. Um, so this is a deed of the heart. The intention is a deed of the heart. So this is yani instantaneous. Yani it's not something that requires like time. It's instantaneous. So think about yourself like when you're sitting on the couch and you want to get something to drink from the kitchen. You just get up and go. And you know why you're getting up and going, but you don't say, for example, before you get up, I now intend to get up from the couch to go to the kitchen and get a drink. That doesn't happen. Immediately, once, for example, you know that you want that drink, you know that it's in the kitchen, you get up and you go. That's the intention. So why are you standing there facing the qibla with, for example, your hands next to your ears, about to say Allahu Akbar? Why are you doing that? Because you're about to pray the obligatory Dhuhr prayer. Because they called the adhan, they called the iqamah, you lined up, the imam is there. He said, Istaw wastaqim wa athabani wa athabakumullah. What are you doing there? You're going to pray. That's why you're saying Allahu Akbar. That's the intention. It's not it's not more than that. And I'm saying that because there's some people that they have trouble thinking that they have to visualize the intention in their heart. They don't have to visualize, I now intend to pray the obligatory Dhuhr prayer for the sake of Allah, Allahu Akbar. No, they don't have to. It's immediate. It's what are you doing there? Why are you standing there? Why are you about to say Allahu Akbar? Because you're about to pray the obligatory Dhuhr prayer. That's the intention. And we'll get more into that, inshallah, the next class. We ask Allah Ta'ala to have mercy upon us. We ask Allah Ta'ala to provide for us. We ask Allah Ta'ala to lift the calamities and the tribulations from the Muslims all over the world. We ask Allah Ta'ala to grant victory and domination to the Muslims all over the world, and to grant them patience and to grant them a good ending. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to make our final words, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.